you suffer from chronic CFED or can't focus energy drain? Try over-the-counter Vibrant. One tablet contains the same caffeine as a cup of coffee, but without the calories or coffee breath. Vibrant. Caffeine, not coffee. Taking Vibrant may result in a lack of drowsiness, improved productivity, and better cash flow from decreased coffee spending. Unexpected job promotions have been associated with Vibrant. Vibrant may decrease the urge to zone out, doze off, or exhibit signs of slacking. All jokes aside, always read the label, take only as directed, and limit caffeine as it may cause real side effects. Not for children under age 12.
Blog Talk Radio.
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? It's 10:03 on a Friday night, and you know what time it is. It's time to sign off forums, and I'm your host, George Beverly, better known as G-Bev, and we're about to get it on for part 2 of this radical talk that we're talking about. I mean, we had such a great time last time that, it just pretty much went crazy, and I did not have time to even finish what I wanted to talk about. So it was great. I thought it was great. It was Holy Ghost filled. We had all kinds of stuff going on. It was some deep, y'all. It was some deep. I thought it was deep, and I enjoyed myself. Lots going on in the news. Y'all know I don't really like doing news stuff, but I got to tell you, there's some really crazy stuff going on. Really crazy stuff. I don't really understand it, but I tell you, this Ben Carson, man. Woo! I'm not going to really go there with Ben Carson because that's who he is and all that good stuff. But I tell you, he's currently not my favorite guy in the world right now. But from what I hear, he's going to be the front runner for the Republican nomination. So who knows? I don't know what's going on, but what I do know is he's coming up with some really crazy stuff. That's the only I can say is crazy stuff. I don't really even know how to explain it, but whatever. So, without further ado, I want to get on. I've had a better week than I had last week, and I had nobody call me a monkey or anything, so I'm good on that one, I think, right now. What else I had? I had something going on that I did not mention, but trying to really think what was going on that I had going on, and I can't think about it right now. But I'm happy to be on, happy to be back in the land of the living, doing my thing. I'm just doing a couple of things on my board here so we can get started. I'll call it craziness. But who knows? I just want to thank all my people out there who are supporting me and praying for me. And if you view me as an enemy, then I thank you for praying for me anyway. If you're Christian, you're supposed to be praying for your enemies. So it is what it is. I'm not going to try to fight it. I try to love y'all and try to push out what I can push out. Without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and get a kick in, get it started. If you'd like to call in tonight, you can call in at 347-989-1014. If you'd like to contact me or you have a topic you want to discuss, or if I got something wrong and did some research and you got another take on it, please, you can find me at on Facebook at facebook.com/george.mango.904. That's facebook.com/george.mango.904. You can also find me on my group page, facebook.com/soundoffforums with 3 F's. You can also get me at Twitter at soundoff97413. You can also email me at soundoff97413 That is soundoff97413 at gmail.com. And then I'll be reading Ephesians 6:10-13. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in his power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand the wiles of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darknesses of ages, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in holy places. Therefore take upon the whole armor of God, that you be able to stand within the evil day, and doing all to do to stand. And that's Ephesians 6:10-13. I read that because it's important for me to give you a reference of where I stand and where the show stands. See, we even though we appear to be flesh and blood, because we are, but we appear to be upright and standing. Our flesh gets in our way. And when I say our flesh gets in our way, I've said this before. I don't know if you guys caught this or not, but it is one of those things where it is said that we war not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and against things of high and wicked places. So I also want to talk to you, ladies and gentlemen, about give you a baseline. I gave you first the baseline of what the show is about, but now we're going to go into the actual show, because part one was just so filled with so much stuff about the Bible. The originator of Satan, and how Satan utilized his code switching in order to manipulate the angels and the principalities and different. I said angels because there's three spheres of angels, and about three spheres of angels within heaven. So. So we're going to go, I'll give you, first I'll go there, and then no, you know what, I have to go back, because I have to give you the scripture with the warring of the flesh and blood. And that's coming from, and this scripture is coming from Galatians 5:17. This is coming from Galatians 5:17, and this is why I said we're a triad being, because we have the flesh, or the body, you want to call it, which gives into all our senses, our hearing, our touch, our feel, all the things that the body aspires to lust after, and then we have our soul, which goes to God or Satan, and then we have the spirit, which God put in us when he breathed in the breath of life into to Adam. So we have the Spirit of God in us, and we also have the Holy Spirit. That if you see these cartoons, usually you'll see an angel on one side and a little devil on another side. That is the flesh versus spirit. It's not necessarily what they perceive it to be. But Galatians 5:17 explains it well. I'm reading from the King James Version, saying, this is Galatians 5:17, King James Version. It says, "For the flesh lusteth against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh, and this are contrary to the one to another, so that ye cannot do the things that ye would." So now that you know that the flesh wars with the spirit, because the flesh wants to do what it wants to do, Satan is using his techniques in order to put you in a stronghold. So we're going to go to Ezekiel 28. We're going to go to Ezekiel 28. I'm just giving you a baseline of where we are at, coming from Monday. So Ezekiel 28, showing you how Satan is the originator and the deceiver that he is. God tells us in the Word, Ezekiel 28, it starts at 18 through 19. Okay, so 18 reads, You defiled your sanctuaries by the multitude of your inquiries. But the inquiry and of your trading, therefore I brought fire from your midst. It devoured you, and I turned you to ashes upon the earth, in the sight of all who saw you, and who knows you among the people are astonished at you. And you have become an horror and shall be no more. Then we can go to Ezekiel, because it continues in Ezekiel 14. Excuse me, not Ezekiel, Elijah. Let me get there real quick. Elijah 14. And then we're going to go to, I'm going to start at 16. You can read the whole thing because it applies. But I want to give you a specific snapshot so I can move on and start talking about code switching. So when God finished saying that, Jesus finished saying that in Ezekiel 19, then let's go to Isaiah 14:16. It says, those who see you will gaze at you and consider you, saying, is this the man who made the earth tremble, who shook nations, who made the world as a wilderness and destroyed its cities, who do not open the houses for his prisoners? That's 16 through 17. 16 through 17, y'all. God puts out the information for us in the Word. So we know that Satan inquired. Well, let me do this. Then. Let me do this. One more thing, because I want everybody to understand that there is specifics when it comes to Jesus. When Jesus is talking, he's coming with specifics. When Jesus talks, he's coming and he's talking about things in specific order. We're going to go to 2 Peter 2:4. 2 Peter 2:4. 2 Peter 2:4. And it reads, for if God did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into the chains of darkness to reserve for judgment, and did not spare the ancient world, but saved Noah, one of the 8 people, a preacher of righteousness, bringing the flood of the world of the ungodly and turning the city of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them to destroy, making them an example to those who afterward would live ungodly, and delivered the righteous Lot, who oppressed by the filthy conduct of the wickedness. For the righteous man dwelling among them tormented his righteous soul for the day to day by seeing and hearing these lawfulness deeds. Then the Lord knows how to deliver the godly out of the temptation and to reserve the unjust under punishment for the day of judgment, especially for those who walk according to the flesh in the lust of the uncleanliness and despise authority. They are promiscuous, self-willing. They are not afraid to speak evil damnation, whereas angels who are greater in power and might do not bring a revealed accusation against them because of the Lord. See, God is great. God has already laid it out for us. The angels are going to be punished for a time to come. But it was because of Satan and his trickery, his inquiries. See, Jesus said it very specifically. He said in Ezekiel, he said, let me go back. He said specifically, he said these things about Satan. He said that you have defiled your sanctuaries by the multitude of your inquiries, by the quarry of your trading. What is Satan doing? He's about to do code trading, code switching. So, by definition, this is what definition code switches come from. It's a noun. It says the practice of the alternative between two or more languages or variations of language in a conversation, right? Then we're going to jump into what rhetoric means. Rhetoric is a noun. It means the act of the effective or the persuasion, speaking or writing, especially in using of figures of speech or compilation of techniques. It also means the language designed to have a persuasive or impressible effect on its audience, but often regarding a lack of sensitive or meaningful content. Rhetoric. That is what we're talking about here right now, ladies and gentlemen. You can say whatever you want to say about my program, but this is the truth of the matter. The truth of the matter is code language, covert language, and cynical magic being used to infect the code of the matrix. Part 2. There's 8 sneaky racial code words and why politicians love them. It is a guide to manipulate, by manipulating bigotry into supporting an agenda, by inserting that you do not know about race. And this article was written on Roots, the Roots.com by Jenée Desmond-Harris. In this modern time, you have to be very cunning and eloquent linguist to hold the secrets you hold dear to your norms and your beliefs. It has been known that code switching is a very powerful tool used by the Nazi Germans, the runaway slaves, even the Native Americans, to name a few. If racism is a thing of the past or eradicated, then why do we find it deeply embedded in the very vile fabric of American politics, media, and social and society? It has recently been brought to light to us by the Roots columnist Jenee Desmond-Harris, that very such things has been fabricated about minorities and women are still being pushed down the public's throats. Cynical magic is being placed in our hearts and in our minds. The web of life is known as the matrix, has been infected with a new code today. It's not really necessarily new, but it's a new coding. And I'm going to play you a clip in a second that explains what I'm talking about first, and then I'm going to go into the article in full blast. Where am I at? It says the coding tonight. We will be looking at the article and what can we do to recognize the tremendous rhetoric of the devil Satan wants us to fight over on this earth. First Timothy, we read 1 Timothy 1. You can read it all the way down to 12, but I won't do that. I'm just going to read down to 11. It says, now that the Spirit expressly says that in the latter time some will depart from the faith, give heed to deceiving spirits and the doctrine of demons, speaking love and hypocrisy, having their own conscience seared with a hot iron, forbidding the marrying and the commanding of the stained foods in which God created to be received with a thanksgiving by those who believe and know the truth. For every creature of God is good, and nothing is to be refused if it is received with thanksgiving. For if it is sanctified by the word of God in prayer, if the instructions of the brother are in these things, we will be good ministers of Jesus Christ, nurtured in the word of the faith and the good doctrine in which you have carefully followed, but reject profane and old women fables, and exercise yourself towards godliness. For bodily exercise profit a little, but godliness is the profitable for all things, having promise of the life that now is and of which is to come. This is the faithful saying, worthy of all acceptance. For to this end we both labor and suffer a reproach, because we trust in the living God, who is our Savior of all men, especially those who believe these things command and teach. I'll go ahead and read it all. Let no one despise your youth, but be an example of the believer in the word, in conduct, in love, in spirit, in faith, in purity. Till I come, give attention to reading, to exaltation, to doctrine. Do not neglect the gift that is in you, given to you by prophecy, with the laying of the hands of the eldership. Meditate on these things. Give yourself entirely to them, that your progress may be evident to all. Take heed to yourself and to the doctrine. Continue in them, for in doing this you will save both yourself and those who hear you. And that, my friends, is God. That, my friends, is Jesus Christ laying out a foundation of what Satan wants to take from us, and yet we allow him to come in and to brutally separate us, destroy us, and have rhetoric that has nothing to do with God. He splits us and he divides us, because if he divides, he will conquer, and you cannot stand. So listen to what this gentleman says. I believe his name is Lee Walters. Let's see here. I believe his name is Lee Walters, and let's see. I will have to. Let me kind of give you a backdrop on this. I found this. His name is Lee Atwaters. Let me give you a little background about Mr. Atwaters. Lee Atwaters. Let's see. He was an American political counsel and strategist for the Republican Party. He was an advisor to President Reagan and H.W. Bush, and the chairman of the Republican Nominee Committee. He was born in Georgia. He lived in South Carolina. He grew up in South Carolina. What else can I say about him? He, like I said, he was a part of the Republican nominee, and but he said something that was really profound. And I got the clip from. If you don't know who Joe Madison is, he is a radio host off of Sirius XM, Urban View, channel 126. That's Sirius XM. If you don't have Sirius XM, I would suggest that you get it. It's really awesome. Urban View, channel 126. This is Joe Madison. So Joe Madison has this clip. He said, when it comes to code, and he hinted the word code, he played this clip. And so I found the clip, and so I'm going to play it for you. Now, you got to listen a little bit close. I'll play it 2 times. You got to really listen really close, because when I heard it, I really didn't understand what he said. And then I went back, and I listened to it again, and I exactly heard what he said. So here it goes.
Here's how I would approach that issue as a statistician or a political scientist, or no, as a psychologist, which I'm not, is how abstract you handle the race thing. In other words, you start out, and now y'all are quoting me on this. You start out in 1954 by saying nigger, nigger, nigger. By 1968, you can't say nigger. That hurts you, backfires. So you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract now. You're talking about cutting taxes, and all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things. And the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. And subconsciously, maybe that is part of it. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if it is getting that abstract and that coded, that we're doing away with the racial problem one way or the other. You follow me? Because obviously sitting around saying we want to cut taxes, we want to cut this, and we want is much more abstract than even the busing thing, and a hell of a lot more abstract than nigger, nigger, you know. So any way you look at it, race is coming on the back burner.
Okay, so once again, I'll play it again, and then once I play it again, I will tell you.
Here's how I would approach that issue as a statistician or a political scientist, or no, as a psychologist, which I'm not, is how abstract you handle the race thing. In other words, you start out, and now y'all are quoting me on this. You start out in 1954 by saying nigger, nigger, nigger. By 1968, you can't say nigger. That hurts you, backfires. So you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract now. You're talking about cutting taxes, and all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things, and the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. And subconsciously, maybe that is part of it. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if it is getting that abstract and that coded, that we're doing away with the racial problem one way or the other. You follow me? Because obviously sitting around saying we want to cut taxes, we want to cut this, and we want is much more abstract than even the busing thing. And a hell of a lot more abstract than nigger, nigger, you know. So any way you look at it, race is coming on the back burner.
So basically what he was saying, and I'm going to wrap it up because if you're in the chat room, I put the link of the YouTube page so you can actually hear it and listen to it at a later date if you want to. I also put it on my web page. So what he was saying is at one point in time you could say up front to black people nigger, nigger, nigger all day, you know, and there's nothing they could have done about it. Then what he said is as time moved on, then they recoded the word nigger, 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 and they put it in a political term, wrapped it up, patched it up, and made it seem like, oh, well, you know, hey, this is a good thing. Okay, well, they knew that they were talking about race the whole time, but people didn't catch on to it until, you know, it came out later. And we know President Reagan, God rest his soul, wasn't the best president when it came to race. Trickle-down Reaganomic effect really didn't trickle down to anybody but the rich. So, you know, whatever. But I want everybody to be clear. I'm attacking Satan by saying that we have to understand that in our flesh, as if you consider yourself a Republican, Democrat, liberal, or whatever, we can't let the rhetoric of these people that are being affected into the matrix, which we live in, the reality that we are real people and we need to band together. So this article from the Roots states this happened. This article started from March 16th, 2014. It's a 3-page article. I also put the article in the chat room so you can read it yourself because that's what I do. Information flow, you know, whatever. So It says, when Ron Paul was talking about real cultural problems in our inner cities, in particular this week, he wasn't the first American politician to be slammed for using the racial code word language to get the point across. Far from it. Henry Lopez, the author of Dog Whistle Politics, how code racial appeal have reinvented racism and wrecked the middle class, saying it's not just the promotion of old-fashioned racial stereotypes that we need to worry about. Rather, he argued, it is the manipulation of the racist in service of a very specific goal. Lopez's book focuses on election officials' ability to tap into the bias without being explicit about it, all to gain support for what is called regressive policy, which ironically hurts the working class white people as much as the colored people. Exactly what Lee Waters was talking about. It's the source code speech operated on two levels, he says. It targets racial anxiety and also allows plausibility and deniability by crafty language that lets the speaker deny that he's even thinking about race. It's disturbing and frustrating, and more than ever, it's what racism sounds like and how politics works. To understand how the outright racist language has gone underground but is working as hard as ever to drum up support by conservative politics, the author says you must have a look at this list of sneaky code words and phrases that politicians throughout history have loved and what they really mean. The first one is inner city. Ryan's state, which he later said he regrets, is a perfect example of the way public expressions of racism has evolved, said Lopez. You can't publicly say black people don't like to work, but you can say that here in the inner city, culture is which generations of people don't value work. The goal here, he says, isn't to demonize minorities now let me stop right there. The word demonize minorities. Now you see what I'm getting at? Demonizing. So when we start talking about demonizing, we're putting a different spirit, not a different faith, but a different spirit on what the issue is. Because when you talk about demons, demons are real. You can't use that word loosely without knowing something about the underworld or the heavens. So the word demonize is a very powerful word. So isn't to demonize minorities, far from it, but to demonize a government that helps the middle class, and if the people Americans have historically associated with the inner cities has to be used in the process, so be it. 2, state rights. This is a big one. You hear all these 3%ers talk about state rights like it was their bread and breakfast. Totally innocent and non-racial rights, excuse me, not so much. Lopez says, we first heard this from Barry Goldwater, who was running on a very unpopular platform critical of the New Deal during the 1964 presidential election. He makes the critical decision to use coded racial appeals, trying to take advantage of the rising racial anxiety in the face of the civil rights movement, says Lopez. In other words, while the states' rights is a pretty racial nucleus issue, you just have to look at what has been happening, what's happening at the moment, to realize that everyone knew it was translated to the right of the state to resist federal mandates to integrate schools and society. Real powerful stuff, y'all. Real powerful stuff. And I when it comes to certain things like this, it's like, well, damn. I mean, there's people who said that before Obama got in office, racism was dead. Okay, here we go. The third thing is force busing. Lopez calls this phrase, which on its face is racially neutral, the Northern analysis of state rights, which allows the North to express fevered opposition in the integration with it having to mentor race. After all, kids have been bused to school for quite a while. It was only when the plan took a racial edge that it began controversial. Politicians did not have to say it outright, though they simply dropped in the phrase and targeted resentment and gained support. 4, cut taxes. Here's it. This is what Lee Atwater was saying. So kind of listen to this one right here. He said, dog whistle politics is partly about demonizing people of color. Once again, that word demonizing people of color. But it is also about demonizing government. There you go, putting a face on the government, putting a spirit on the government in a way that helps the very rich, says Lopez. So when Ronald Reagan says cut taxes, what he was communicating to the middle class was some of your taxes won't be wasted on minorities. A key Reagan operative admitted as much in the interview quoted in Lopez's book, saying, "We want to cut taxes," is a whole lot more abstract than nigger nigger. It continues to be the more abstract, and it is continued to work. So I'm going to stop there for a second and kind of elaborate. When Atwater when he said that, when he was saying cutting taxes, you got to remember we got 3 branches of government. We've got the executive branch, the judicial branch, and we've got the I know what it is. Legislation branch. Okay, so the legislation branch consists of the House and the Senate, and then you got the Supreme Court, and then you got the President. So what happens is I'm not. You guys are civic people, so you understand these things. But for those who don't understand it, this is the thing. Because the Republican Party believes in what they call cutting taxes and not letting inflation grow, because we're going to do, next week, we're going to do, Monday, I'm going to do a show about what really is going on when they talk about inflation of the currency or Obama spending money, ladies and gentlemen. All of that is rhetoric and false. And I will give you proof that is rhetoric and false. So just bear with me. On Monday, tune in, and then you'll be able to find out. But what they're saying is all the entitlements monies that people get, the one that says they're getting handouts, these type of things, they've changed the word from welfare to entitlement because it's more politically correct to use than welfare. They say, yeah, we want a welfare reform. They still say that. But when entitlements, they talk about health benefits for people who can't afford it. They talk about Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare for the elderly, and they also talk about welfare. Okay, these are the type of things when they say, well, we want to cut back on taxes. We're talking about they want to cut back on the growth of these entitlement benefits. Another benefit is the VA benefits. Some of them want to cut back on that and say that there's overspending on that. So you got to understand the verbal code words. If you don't understand it, I got Google, you got Google. You got a phone, I got a computer, you got a phone, and you probably got a computer. Or there's the library. You can find this information out for yourself. It's very important that we understand these things. And then I skipped something. I skipped something with when they were talking about voting. Oh, here it is. Goldwater says, who was running for president for an unpopular platform? Jeez, wrote down on me. Critical of his New Deal during the 1964 political election. Now, how they group it together is they say blacks don't vote. They normally vote Democratic, or they vote independent, because they don't like voting in the Republican eye. They don't like voting for them because they don't want to work. That is the same thing that Paul Ryan said. They don't want to work. So they think that people who vote democratically are just wanting entitlements to help them. I had one guy said to me on the Facebook page, he said, if I had the entitlements that all these black people will have, I would be a made man. Nothing is made unless God allows it. So we can move forward with that one. Okay, so remember, cut taxes. When they start talking about cutting taxes, they're referring to the welfare state. Okay? All right, so let's go to 5. 5 says law and order. This phase, says Lopez, come on. This phase, says Lopez, is to draw on the image of minorities as criminals that was used by both Reagan and Clinton. He points to an inverted relationship in Congress between the conversations about civil rights and criminal law enforcement, which you see in the 1960s. In this opposition to civil rights becomes what we really need in law and order to crack down. Of course, the latter is less conversational, and at least it is on the surface and avoids issues of race. Now, when it talks about law and order, now this is a good time to bring in. Let me check my time. This is a good time to bring in. I got enough time. This is the time to bring in what we call Black Lives Matter. Now, I've heard a lot of people talk about Black Lives Matter and all that stuff. I personally am not involved in that movement. But it is a movement. It is a way for young people to gather together and to move. And it's not only just black people. It's black people, Asian people, in Native Americans. There's a lot of people in this movement. Now, a lot of people consider the Black Lives Matter group a hate group because of the recent killings of police officers. And I will go in that on another date. I don't want to get in that because it's really deep about that. I just say this: when you got to go back to the slave days. See, slaves weren't allowed to travel freely in America. Even if you were a free slave, even if the slave master died and said, wrote his will, you were free, and you got free papers, in the South, they did not have to accept free papers. If you were a Northerner and a Southerner caught you and you had free papers, they would rip it up and throw it away. And there's nothing you can do about that because blacks were not allowed to roam around America free. That's a fact. Secondly, when slaves ran away, they always had the overseer or overseers or the bounty hunters, that's where bounty hunters come from, to retrieve their property. So once those bounty hunters happened, and I know it's kind of a slippery slope, but bear with me, those people who were uneducated usually became law enforcers, and those law enforcers usually became people who were in the Klan, thus having this issue. Like I said, I'm not going to go deep into it, and you may disagree with me, but do your research. I've done mine, and I'm telling you, this stuff is deep, and it's real. Okay, so we're going to go to 6. welfare and food stamps, okay? Welfare, said Lopez, broadly supported during the New Deal era, which was understood that people could face hardships in their lives that sometimes required government assistance. And in fact, it proposed limits to white recipients. In this context, it wasn't heavily stigmatized. Fast forward to the 1960s, when Lyndon Johnson made it clear that he wanted it to be a racial justice competition, then it became possibly for the conservative to start painting welfare as a transfer of wealth to the minority. San Lopez. Remember when Reagan speaks about welfare queens, today, says Lopez, here we hear food stamps used similarly. And you see that today. You still hear welfare queens or welfare pimps, women being on welfare, they don't want to work, blah, blah, blah. I'll say this, it's one thing to be in your neighborhood for your whole entire life, but if you do not travel around the United States from the south to the north, to the east, and to the west, you are pretty much in a box. Because I've lived all over this country, and I tell you what, it is totally different in the Northwest. If you start talking about North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, parts of Colorado, parts of Kansas, Idaho, Utah, some parts of Washington State, and Oregon, we're talking about a demographic of a large geographic population of white people, Native Americans, and Hispanic. There's black people sparking on that. Now, I'm not saying there's no blacks. I'm saying there's a smaller percentage than in the South. In the South, if you go to Atlanta, Georgia, you will be like, well, did I land in Africa? Because that's all you're going to see is black folk. I mean, literally, you're going to see a lot of black people. Same thing in Louisiana. Same thing in Mississippi. Same thing and so in those, because I grew up in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I grew up in Louisiana. So there's a such thing as cross the tracks. If you in Oregon, there's no such thing as across the tracks because minorities weren't allowed to be even in Oregon for a while when it became a state. Matter of fact, if you were a minority, and you weren't black, because blacks weren't allowed, if you were a minority, you lived outside of the city limits. So, and that's factual. So, yes, all lives does matter, and that's what I'm saying, Michelle. All lives do matter, and that's the point. Because when we're talking about this rhetoric, I'm taking it from a spiritual point of view, saying, hey, look, this is what we're fighting over. We're fighting over something that really means nothing in the real scheme of things, because ultimately Satan wants our soul. So I would say, you say all lives matter, I would say all souls matter, because that's the end game. But thank you, Michelle, for saying that, because all lives do matter, because it doesn't matter what color you are. Guess what? You starve the same, you drink the same, you eat the same. And number 7 is going to be Sharia law. Okay, I'm not versed in this. I'm not going to go in great detail. Maybe I should be, and I will be. But I'll tell you one thing about this Sharia law thing. Okay. Let me read it first, and then I'm gonna get to my point. Let me see if I got my schematic up. Yep, I got it. It's on. Okay, I got it. We started hearing about this alleged threat of American justice in the wake of September the 11th attack, said Lopez, when Bush administration became intent on linking the war in Iraq to hijackers who were from Saudi Arabia. To get here, we convinced Americans that this threat is internal as well. New brown immigrants who are threatening the heartland, he says, a prime example of Kansas prohibition courts from drawing the Sharia law. It is not a threat at all. The point isn't the reality. It is the racial frame. This point, these brown Muslim people are interfering in our country. So be afraid and vote for the politicians who will support the right wing. Now, everybody's got their own beliefs, and I'm not saying that what I'm saying is factual. You should go with it. Sorry, let me rephrase that. It is factual. The stuff I put out, I research to make sure that it's factual and it's not false. But what I am saying is everybody's got their own ideology and their own beliefs. I can debate, or I can talk to people on a very secure level about who I am and what I believe without getting upset over something that what I deem to be insignificant. Do I believe that 9/11 was an inside job? Yes, I do. When I went to Iraq, and my unit wasn't the one who caught Saddam Hussein, but I was there when Saddam Hussein was caught. I was there when Uday and Qusay was executed. We were in Baghdad. We were at Baghdad Airport, the international airport, what we call BIOP. And then the reports came out that everything that George Bush and his cabinet said about Hussein was a lie. I think we have to re-question exactly what intentions this Patriot Act law. And if you haven't heard my radio show about the Patriot Act, you need to please go back and listen to that, because I go directly to the actual Patriot Act, read it line for line so everybody can understand it. I'll break it down for you. Now, understanding this, you may have a belief in your head that the Sharia law thing is real and that the Muslim Brotherhood is ran by Obama. Fine. If that's what you want to believe, that's fine. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and try to debate you about that. But I want you to know the rhetoric that you're hearing has been said before. And let me tell you, when I found this, I was very shocked. I was very awestruck. And if you're going to try to call in, if you'd like to call in and voice your opinion or give your take on it, call in at 347-989-1014. That's 347-989-1014. If I don't get to you right away, please hang on, because I'm flipping through screens, and so I've checked periodically between the chat room and my board to see if anybody's called. So I'm going to read this, and I'm going to ask you to listen with your ears, your ears, please. Please release everything that you may know or think about, because we're talking about the ideology of behind hate and the double talk, or what we are talking about the matrix in code switching. And code switching is basically hidden language within your rhetoric. Okay, so I found this gentleman. This book was written. It's called The Watcher on the Tower by H.H. Bauer, and it was written in. It's on page 2 of this book. It was written August 1920-something, August 4th, 1920-something. And the title of this page, it says, Why I Am a Klansman. 1, because this is my country, my native country, and its flag is my flag unto death. 2, because this is America and I am an American. 3, because Protestant Anglo-Saxon blood is in my heart and my soul of the foundation of this republic. 4, because our forefathers were baptized in their own blood for the constitutional rights and privileges we now enjoy. 5, because they naturalized and immortalized America. 6, because the separation of church and state and the free public schools is a part of the Constitution of the United States. 7, because the Roman Catholic Church is now and has been insinuously working in various ways to especially through our public schools to take America Catholic. 8. Because the Ku Klux Klan is now using and will continue to use its mighty influence to forestall any and every such move by or for the Catholic Church or any persons of power from whatever source, alien or whatever, who seek to interfere with or encroach upon our inalienable constitutional rights and privileges, subvert or destroy our government. 9. Because the Ku Klux Klan is 100% for white supremacy, restriction, immigration, Protestantism, Americanization. 10. Because the Ku Klux Klan stands for flat-footed, for good citizenship, obedience to the law, and in law enforcement. 11. Because the Ku Klux Klan teaches physical, social, moral, vocational, patriotic, domestic, and imperial Klansmanship. Because the Ku Klux Klan is the guardian of our public schools and Americans' best friend. 13. Because the Ku Klux Klan has often and is now teaching the only just and practical solution of race question. It puts race pride and race distinction first, where it belongs. 14. Because our illuminous imperial emperor and imperial wizard are the men of the hour in and for America. And finally, because my utter belief in and my duty and my firmness is the things herein stated is why I am a Ku Klux Klanman. By H.H. Bauer. Now, that's a lot to say. Now, saying that, they were here first. Thank you, Michelle. So, the rhetoric that I hear now comes out of the rhetoric I hear there. I take the Roman Catholics, and I say, I take Roman Catholics out, and I insert Muslim. Let's go to 7. It says 7 because the Muslim is now, it said Roman Catholic Church, but I'm putting Muslim, Islam, is now and has been insidedly working in various ways, and especially through our public schools, to make America Islamic. I mean, you just change your religion, you change people, you change the skins of what the Klan believes. And I'm not saying that, listen, people, I'm not saying that all Republican, conservative, Tea Partyists, 3%ers are in the Klan. I'm not even saying that they're racist. I do believe that they're prejudiced and bigoted. That's different. Because some people may not see it as a, because you have to understand what racism is. Racism is exactly what the guy said. He said is a superiority of what he thinks. He thinks that the white race is supreme, and they should, by the right given by God. If you haven't heard this word before, you probably have. It's because it's early. They introduced this early in history. It's called manifest destiny. Manifest destiny basically means that God has given this country to America, to Americans, to do whatever they want to make them mighty and great and rule the rest of the world. And there also is a thing called romantic nationalism. I'll get that definition to you in a little bit, but I don't want to get stuck on that because I want to finish this article. And the article I'm reading from is, like I said, it's from the Roots, theroots.com. From Jenée Desmond-Harris. And this is the last one, and then I'll go back to my point. Number 8 is illegal aliens. He says this phrase said Lopez, is a perfect dog whistle, which targets fear about immigrants as crime, as criminals, taking advantage of welfare and disrespecting the American way of life, but somehow the concerns are always pointed at the Mexican border instead of the ones we share with Canada. It's a racial rhetoric about Latinos that is now being crutched in this seemingly racial neutral language and harnessed to support fear to get people to support conservative politics. Let me say this. Once again, I've lived in Louisiana. I've lived in Texas. I haven't lived in California, and I haven't lived in Arizona. But I go to Arizona a lot because we have family in Arizona. I don't go to California often. I guess I should. I don't know. I really don't like California. But so I can't base my judgment off of everything. But what I can say about this legal immigrant thing is there are more, I would say, well, let me bring this stat up. And if you don't believe me, I can Google it and post it in your group for you. But it is very, very suspicious. We talk about that America thinks that race is over with and all this stuff. But it's very, very, very specific. And this is before Obama. So when we start talking about the Census Bureau, right? The Census Bureau, when you fill out the Census Bureau saying that you're white, black, Hispanic, non-Hispanic, all that stuff, what they do is they take a number census, right? According to the Census Bureau page, it states that if you're from Africa, the northern part of Africa, above the Sahara Desert, if you're northern, so if you're from Egypt or Liberia or from Ghana or Morocco, you're considered to be white in America. If you think I'm lying, look it up yourself. I mean, I got the information, but I'd rather you go look it up. But that says something. So when we talk about foreigners coming to our country to have special privileges and blacks in this country don't move forward, it's a very controversial thing because now you're telling, and this is the funny thing. You can look this up as well. I took this I had this in class in one of my books when I was going to Lane Community College. There was a man from India. Okay, he was fighting to get the right to be considered white, and it was denied. And then years later, they redid it. So if you were a light-skinned Indian man from India, you would be considered white. Let's go back to the Mexicans. Now, this is factual, people. I've done my research. I've been talking about this for a long time. So when we talk about Mexicans, right? First of all, Mexicans are Native Americans. Native Americans who started from the beginning of where Lewis and Clark hung out in Washington, all the way down to California. That's why it's Los Angeles, Los this, Los that, whatever. So all of that, give you a little history class, all the way down to Mexico and all that stuff, right? The only part that wasn't really Mexico when we started to expand and we fought the French for it was the Louisiana Purchase. We know that the Louisiana Purchase, because it's my history, I should know it, was the largest state in the Union at one time. And so it divided, sort of what Mexico owned still in America because we hadn't gone that far west yet. So it kind of divided what was Mexico's and what was America. And so it wasn't until Andrew Jackson and his Spanish War, guys, you look that up. So we had the Spanish War and the Alamo, right, whatever. And so it ended in the Alamo. So just a quick fact that in the Treaty of Guatemala, you can look it up, in the Treaty of Guatemala, the Mexicans that were already in America were to be considered American citizens. Not only were they admitted to be American citizens, but they were supposed to be classified as white. Y'all not hearing what I'm saying. So when we talk about race control, and I know I'm getting off of the spiritual look of what I'm coming from, but give me a second to explain why we're talking about such things as code words, because it's very important when we start talking about borders and all this. Mexicans were here, Native Americans who were Mexican, or whatever you want to call them, were here before the colonists went west. And so when they went west, they had to fight against the Native Americans, they had to fight against the Mexicans. Got it, right? So check this out. So as they continued to travel, Andrew Jackson signed this treaty with Mexico. There still was not a border formed, because as you realize, Texas wasn't formed as a state, New Mexico wasn't formed as a state, Arizona wasn't formed as a state, and California was not formed as a state, because they have not went west of us. So when we start talking about manifest destiny, that's where manifest destiny actually really kicks in. And then I'm definitely getting ahead of myself. I'm talking about a whole lot of stuff, but just follow me. So when we start talking about borders, we've got Native Americans, Mexican Americans who are here in this country already. So when the population of Mexican Americans and the Native Americans start to peak up, and the white settlers start to move in, and then you've got the blacks moving across the country with as property still then, and they're still moving. And so you got, well, not necessarily because the Civil War happened, but anyway, so they're moving forward and they're moving west. So we have to realize that there were already Mexicans here in large droves. So what's the difference between the Native Americans who've been taken, who almost been eradicated, and then the Mexicans who are already here? So when I was in Texas, I worked with this gentleman. His name, Robles. Senor Robles, Mr. Robles, great man. He went to University of Texas. He's got a degree in I think it's entrepreneurship. And what he does is his main focus. He started a company called Cafe Leche, which means coffee, milk, whatever. And so basically what he does is he lives in Texas, and so what he does is he's a fixer. That's what he does. So what he does is he goes to all the high schools in the surrounding area. If you are a senior or a junior, he helps you get hooked up with the FAFSA. He teaches you how the FAFSA works, and then you sign up for the FAFSA, which in order to go to college, any college, you have to be able to sign out of FAFSA. Now, most of these people who are trying to get out of their situations, as the Tea Party is to say, well, they don't want to work, they don't want to do this, and they don't want to do that. Texas had a Hispanic grant at one point in time. They had like a trust fund where Hispanics could go and they could apply for certain scholarships, and if they qualify for it, then they would get it along with the Pell Grant money, and we know that the Pell Grant is getting dried up. But his goal was to get as many students as possible, not only Hispanic students, black students, Native American students, and even white students. This gentleman would hold a seminar every month. He would have a FAFSA drive, as you will, like a blood drive. He would have a FAFSA drive every month for all the seniors. So there was no excuse where I couldn't make it this, I was playing the ball game, blah, blah, blah. So he made it his personal goal to do this in his life. He did it in Wichita Falls, and he also did it in Austin, Texas. I think he did it between the roads between Wichita Falls, because that's where I lived and where I met him, and Texas. So needless to say, a lot of the Hispanic people kids who went there their parents only spoke Spanish, which was kind of weird to me because I thought they were, I had no clue. But it was a very opening situation. And so And so when that happened, he spoke, fluent Mexican. Excuse me. He spoke fluent Spanish, and his wife was Spanish as well. She was a dropout, and she now has a master's degree in administration, and she's a principal in one of the schools in Wichita Falls, which is a great story. But anyway, so needless to say, they are people are pulling themselves up by their chin strap. They are trying to work. They are trying to do the things that they are doing. And so when the rhetoric talks about putting up borders or anchor babies or things like that, Mexicans are taking our jobs. These are fears that Satan likes to use to confuse you. And we already talked about this in Timothy. Satan likes to use these words. And if you're just joining in, we're talking about code switching, okay? And how the code switching has affected the matrix. Satan has disarrayed us in a way where all we can think of is the flesh. And we talked about this. We actually talked about. Let me take it to Galatians. In Galatians 5:17, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. If you haven't heard the first code switching thing that I got all mixed up in the first thing, the first one, I was talking deeply in the Bible and how Satan is affected. So, Galatians 5. So this is how Satan likes to attack you. Galatians 5, 13, 7, 14. Where's that? Okay. Okay. So we're gonna go to Galatians 7. Galatians 4. I apologize. Galatians 5, the New King James Version, starting at verse 16 through 18, and it says, "No, I should. Maybe I should." Okay. We'll go to 21. We'll go to 21. We'll go to 21 because hey, let's just keep rolling with it. We'll read to 24. How about that? We'll start at 16 and we'll go to 24. So we're going to go to Galatians 5, 16 through 24. It says, "I say then, walk in the Spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusts against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. And there are contrary to one another, so that you do not do the things that you wish. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. Now the works of the flesh are evident, which are adultery, fornication, uncleanliness, lawlessness, adultery, sorcery, hatred, covets, jealousies, outbursts of wrath, selfish ambitions, deceiving, hearsays, envy, murders, drunkenness, revelry, and even the like, of which I tell you beforehand, just as I have told you in the past, that those who practice such things will not inherit the kingdom of God." And if you don't know what the kingdom of God is, I've also done a series about what the kingdom of God is. So go back on my archives and listen to that. 22. "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against each of these things is no law. And those who are Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and its desires. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Let us not be conceived, provoked, or envying anyone. hard for us as human beings to understand what goes in and out this world, because it's a spiritual thing, y'all. I mean, if you are a Christian or you know the Word of God, you should be reading your Word. So the Word is the protection. Your Word is the protection against Satan. So when we start talking about code switching, let me once again, let me tell you what code switching is and who's the author and the finisher of it. It says, we go to Ezekiel 28:18, you defiled your sanctuary by the multitudes of your inquiries and by the inquiries of your trading. Who is he talking to, ladies and gentlemen? What is God saying? Why is Satan now all of a sudden having these inquiries? What makes him so special? What makes him so special? And I should go read it for you. Matter of fact, I will. But before I read it, I want you to understand this, because I'm going to take you to Ephesians 6, 10 through 13, when I open up with. 10 says, "Finally, my brother, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on your whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil." Okay, let me do a Google search. I don't really know what the wiles of the devil is, but we're about to find out. The wiles is a noun, and wiles is a plural noun. It means deceit, decisive, or cunning, employed in manipulating or pursuing someone to do what he wants them to do. The second, in a third person, means to Aramaic, it means lure or entice. Two, it's any way of saying wiles of the kind. So what is he doing? He's being cunning. He's scheming. He's telling you exactly what you want to hear. Telling you what you want to hear. And the word says in Ephesians 6:10, it says, "Finally, my brother, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil," the cunning, the manipulation of the devil. Because you remember, we're triad people. We're the spiritualness. We're the soul, which you either go to heaven or hell. That's why when somebody says, "Oh, you broke my heart," that's why your soul cries out, because it's a feeling that is unmeasurable, right? And then you got the flesh. And what just read Galatians 5:17, saying that the flesh wants to do whatever it wants to do. It wars, is in constant conflict with the spirit. And guess who's caught in the middle? Your soul. Your soul is caught in the middle. That's why you got the good little angel on the one shoulder and the little devil on the other shoulder, trying to get you to do whatever you want. But he says, listen, be strong, be in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, then you may be able to stand with the wiles of the devil. Now check this out. Check out cunning the devil is. See, the devil has had millennia time to get this right. He had millennia time to get this right. So this is what Paul says. He says, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood." Thing is we're not fighting against flesh and blood. We're not fighting against the body. We're not fighting against all of that. But we're fighting against the mind. About the mind, because if Satan gets your mind, he can control everything. Right? So here we go. But against principalities, against powers, against rulers of darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in highly places. Therefore, take on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand in the evil day, and having all done to stand. So, George, you're saying You're saying to me that we're not fighting against human beings. We're fighting against spirits and stuff like that. All right. If you don't believe me, hey, let me prove it to you right quick. This is how things work. If you are a believer, you have to understand these things. We're going to go to Daniel 10, and I've talked about this on Monday, but I'm just reviewing it for those who lazy, don't want to go back and look at it. But here we go. We go Daniel 10, starting at 12. It says, then he continued. He says, do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before God, your words were heard. I've come in response to them. But the prince of Persia kingdom resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me. But I, which detained there with the king of Persia. Now I have explained to you what will happen to you, your people, in the future, for the vision concerning a time yet to come. Then I scroll down, and I skip down to, let's see, which one I wanted. I skipped down to 20. Here we go. Listen to this closely, okay? Because we've already got the king of Persia and the kingdom of Persia, right? He says, in verse 20, Daniel 10:20 says, so he said, do you know why I have come to you? Soon I will return to fight the prince of Persia. And when I go, the prince of Greece will come. But first I will tell you that it is written in the book of truth. No one supports me against them except Michael, your prince. Ladies and gentlemen, it is about to get deep. If you do not have a tissue, you probably need to get one because you need to blow your nose because it's about to get deep. Most people know this, but I'm about to bring it to the forefront. So Daniel prayed to God. God sends Gabriel, the messenger, to Daniel. Gabriel tells Daniel, I was trying to come to you, but I was fighting the prince of Persia. Now, from my understanding and my understanding of my scripture that I read, is that the prince of Persia is a high angel in the region of Persia. That's why he says kingdom of Persia, because it's the whole realm of Persia. That angel, whomever that angel is, has been infected by Satan. He has given up his authority to Satan. There's another scripture. I wish I could get it for you. I can't think it off the top of my head because he gives up authority. Let me see if I can get it. Because I need to explain this to you in a way that you can understand it. Let's see. Scripture, when it gives up scripture. I think I know what it is, but I want to be factual and I can get it to you. Scripture. I think I can get it. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see if this is the one. Nope, that's not the one. That is not the one. Whoa. Dang it, I'm going to have to get back with you guys on that scripture. Man! I wish. I think it's in Jude. I really think it's in Jude. I think it's called Continent. Power. Well, there is a scripture with Jude. I can go there for the one in Jude because it kind of goes, it explains who Michael is, and then that's what I was getting at before. Jude only had one book, and Jude was the sister of Christ, of Jesus. So this is a description of Michael. Now, Michael is the prince of Israel. That's why in the Bible they only talk about two angels. They talk about Gabriel, who is the deliverer, the messenger of God. He's a high archangel, and we know that Michael is a high archangel, and that they sit on the right and left side of God, and Lucifer was above them. So if you're looking at a 5-pointed star, that's why the 5-pointed star pointing up, it would be Jesus in the middle, Michael on the right, Gabriel on the right, Michael on the left, and then Lucifer at the top. And then if you flip that inverted star, and you look at the Republican logo, they got 3 inverted pentagrams on there, and Luciferians use this, and also Satanists, and they say, well, we don't worship Satan, and we don't worship Lucifer, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we'll get into that in a later subject, a later time. But if you inflict that, that means the fall of Satan. That's why it goes from Lucifer to Satan. So Satan's at the bottom, and then you have your other angels that's fallen with them, and they talk about a lot about these angels in the pits of hell, which I've also read to you, which has fallen. And I'm going kind of quickly because I'm running out of time. Let's see, but it talks about Michael and Jude, and I am trying to narrow down my eyesight. There we go. Jude 1, it starts at verse 8. It says, likewise also the dreamers defile the flesh, reject authority, and speak evil in damnation. Yet Michael the archangel is contending with the devil when he disputes about the body of Moses. Dare not. The word said, dare not. That's what the word said. Dare not bring against any reviled, accusing assumptions, but to say that the Lord rebukes you. And the verse 10 says, but these speak evil of whatsoever they do not know, and whatever they know naturally, like brutes, beasts, in these things they corrupt themselves. Woe to them, for they have gone in the way of Cain, and ran greedily in the error of Balaam for profit, and perched in the rebellion of Korah. If you don't know what that is, that's Jude 1. There's only one book in Jude. There's only one book in Jude, and starts at verse 10, I believe. Verse 8. It started at verse 8. So when Jude was talking about the archangel Michael, basically what she was saying is that the fact that when the devil tried to manipulate Michael to give him the body, God, he already threw Satan down to the pit already once before. He already done that. Let's see what he did. Okay, Revelations 12. I'm going to hurry up. Revelations 12, starting at verse 7. Revelations 12, verse 7. It says, and a war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon. The dragon and his angels fought, but they did not prevail, nor were they found from them in heaven any longer. So the great dragon was cast out, and the serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who deceived the whole world, he was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast with him. When we're talking about Satan, and we're talking about code switching, ladies and gentlemen, Timothy tells us, now the Spirit expresses, 1 Timothy 4 says, now the Spirit expressly says that in the latter time some will depart from the faith, giving haste to the deceiving spirit and the doctrine of demons, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their own conscience seared with a hot iron, forbidding to marry and commanding to abstain to fruits, from food which the Lord have created to receive thanksgiving. He says in verse 7, he says, in verse 6, he says, if you are instructed by the brethren in these things, you will be good minister of Jesus Christ. Nourish the word of faith and good doctrine which you have carefully followed, but reject profane and old wise fables and exercise yourself towards godliness. And so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but what Timothy is saying to you, it's like what's going on when I talk about the code switching. We're getting definitely to the point where, wow, we hear that the code switching comes in and Satan is trying to manipulate the way we think, the way that we move, the way we feel, and all these things. And so why do we put up with that? Why? Why do we put up with this kind of rhetoric? Because we're stronger in he is that is in you that is in him. And there was something else I wanted to read about code switching, but I'm not going to do it. It is what it is, and I don't want to beat a dead horse. But I also want to bring this up. There was one of the main reasons why I always combat people when we talk about slavery, and it's one of my deals. I got what they call racial PTSD, because of things that I've seen in my life growing up and even recently. But what I fight so hard about is I do not want the historians or the people who are grievous against my people, the African people, of what they did to us, and just rewrite history. This article came out September the 24th, 2014, by John Pedder, and the tweet was called, the tweeter uses fascist right-wing attempt to rewrite history for high school students. And basically what happened was there was this high school teacher who basically said that shackled for a comfort enslaved Africans eagerly making exciting trip to New World. Shackled for comfort, enslaved Africans eagerly making exciting trip to New World. And there's a picture of a slave boat, and person had put that. And when you use words like shackled for comfort, if you've ever seen an African slave trade movie, you know they were not comfortable. Eagerly getting to the New World, I don't think so. So when it comes to that kind of stuff, I get really crazy about that stuff because, I love all people, and I try my best to treat everybody equally and fairly. And that's all I require in my life. You can do anything you want to me, that's fine. Please don't mess with my family, but if you do, I got to do what Job did and pray, and pray that God shields my family. There's nothing I can do otherwise. And it's a tough road, very tough road. There are a lot of things that we can do. There are a lot of things that we can do in order to heal not only people. We have to stop fearing, because for the longest time, the United States has always used fear to come against one another. They've used fear for the longest time. I talk about it in the Willie Lynch letter. If you hadn't heard it, I talk about it in the Willie Lynch letter, and I'm not going to read it. But they say, man, look, I mean, for some of you guys are new to my page, so to my radio station, so you probably haven't heard it. And like I said, so many times people get a little, they don't have time to be, listen to me over and over and again. I appreciate you for listening to me. It's great, awesome. So I guess I should read you, but it is important that you understand what the effects of things are. And so some people say that this letter is fabricated because of the language, but regardless if it's fabricated by the CIA or fabricated by whomever, it doesn't matter, because the things that they say in it is spot on. And it's going to be some very, very harsh language. So when I say these things, I'm only reading what I have here. It says, in my bag here, I have a foolproof method for controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if you install correctly, it will control slaves for at least 300 years. My method is simple. Many members of your family and your overseers can use it. I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves, and I take these differences and make them bigger. I use fear. Remember, we're talking about fear. I use fear, distrust, and envy for controlling purposes. These methods have worked on my model plantation in the West Indies, and it will work throughout the South. Take this little list of differences and think about them. On top of my list is age, but it is not there only because it starts with an A. The second is color or shade. There is an intelligent size of plantation status on the plantation. Attitude of the owners, whether the slaves live in a valley, on a hill, east, west, north, or south, has fine hair, coarse hair, or tall or short. Now that you have a list of differences, I shall give you an outline of the act. But before that, I shall assure you that this trust is the strongest than trust, and envy is stronger than adulation. Respect and admiration. The black slaves, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and will become self-refueling, self-regenerating for 100 years, and maybe 1,000. Don't forget, you must pitch the old man, black man, versus the young black man. The young black man against the old black man. You must use the dark-skinned slave versus the light-skinned slave, and the light-skinned slave versus the dark-skinned slave. You must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. You must also have white servants and overseers who distrust all black. But it is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on you. Hence, welfare, the welfare state entitlement, whatever you want to call it. They must love, respect, and trust you only. Gentlemen, these kits are your keys to control. Use them. Have your wives and your children use them. Never miss an opportunity. If used intensely for 1 year, the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful. Let's make a slave. This is the heartbreaking part of it. And if you don't understand this so far, please email me or whatever so you can get an understanding, because this document is deep. Got some meat and potatoes on it. So here comes the harsh language. Okay, so it says, cardinal principle for making a Negro. For fear that our future generations may not understand the principles of breaking both the beasts together, the nigger and the horse, we understand that short-range planning, economic result in a periodic economic chaos. So that to avoid turmoil in economy, it requires us to have breadth and depth in the long-range comprehensive planning. Both skills sharpen perception. We lay down the following principles for the long-range comprehensive economic planning. Both horse and niggers are no good to the economy in a wild or natural state. Both must be broken and tied together for orderly production. For the orderly future, special and partial attention must be paid to the female and the young offspring. Both must be crossbred to produce a various and division of labor. Both must be taught to respond to a particular new language. Psychological and physical instructions of contamination must be created for both. We must hold 6 cardinal principles as true to be self-evident, based upon the following to discourse concerning the economic of breaking and tying the horse and the nigger together, all inclusive of the 6 principles laid down above. Note, neither principle alone will suffice for the good economics. All principles must be employed for orderly good of the nation, according both of a wild horse and a wild or natural nigger is dangerous, even if captured, for they will have to tenderly to seek their customary freedom, and in doing so must kill you in your sleep. You cannot rest. They sleep while you are awake, and are awake while you sleep. They are dangerous near the family house, and it requires too much labor to work them away from the house. Above all, you can't get them to work in a natural state. Hence, both the horse and the nigger must be broken. That is, breaking them from one form of mental life to another, keeping the body, taking the mind. In other words, break the will to resist. Now, the breaking process is the same as the breaking the horse and the nigger, only slightly varies in degrees. But as it is said before, there is an art in a long-range economic planning. You must keep your eyes and your thoughts on the female and the offspring of the horse and the nigger. A brief discourse is offspring developed will shed light on the key of the sound economic principles. Pay little attention to the generational of the original breaking, but to concentrate on the future generation. Therefore, you will break the female mother. She will break the offspring in its early years of development. And when the offspring is old enough to work, she will deliver it up to you. For her natural female protective tendencies will have to be lost in the original breaking process. For example, take the case of a wild stud horse, a female horse and her already infant child, and compare the breaking process to 2 captured nigger men in the natural state. A pregnant female nigger with her pregnant offspring. Take the stud horse, break him from limiting contaminant, completely break the female horse until she becomes very gentle, whereas you or anyone else can ride her in comfort. Breed her mare and her stud until you have a desired offspring. Then you can turn the stud to freedom until you need him again. Train the female horse whereby she will eat out of your hand, and she will return the trained infant horse to you and eat out of your hand. Also, when it comes to breaking an uncivilized nigger, use the same process, but vary the degree and the steps upon the pressure, so as to do the complete reverse of the mind. Take the meaningest and the most resentful nigger, strip him of his clothes in front of the remaining male niggers, the females and the niggers' infants, tar and feather him, tie each leg to a different horse facing opposite directions, set him afire, and beat both the horse to pull him apart in front of the remaining niggers. The next step is to take a bullwhip and beat the remaining males to the point of death in the front of the females and the infants, and in front of the infants. Don't kill him, but put the fear of God in him, for he can be used for the future breeding. Now, I don't know, like I said, I don't know if this is real or not, but what I do know is that it's some very, very, very harsh language. And most people say that the South didn't fight over, the South didn't fight the North didn't fight, South didn't fight over slavery. It sounds like a very, very specific thing. He said, the economic future for future generations. So that doesn't really sound like, like they weren't trying to get money from it, because slavery was money. I'm not saying it's the only thing, but once again, we're talking about code switching, and this evilness about of the code switching is saying to people, hey, slavery wasn't really all that bad. Slavery happened so long ago. I got to pull up let's see. I got to pull up a diagram, because there's a diagram of Lord, I don't know, where is that? That I had that showed the period of slavery, and it's a very interesting slide. I never really realized it, because people say, "Oh, it's so long ago." But when you look at the diagram, that diagram is the period of slavery is pretty short. It's pretty short, y'all. I don't have it in this computer. Anyway, that's not the point, so I'm not going to bring up that. I've got a little time left. We got a caller. So this is what I do when I got a caller. Hello, say your name and where you from.
Yeah, my name. Hello. My name is Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Hey. Okay, I came to your show because I saw the headline about the code switching. Can you give me an example of that?
Yes, sir. I just let me go back. I closed it out, but I can go back to it. So there's an article by the Roots that was written by Jenée Harris, and it was basically something from Ron Paul that he said. And so I'll give you an example from that one.
Ron Paul or Rand Paul?
Paul Ryan. I'm sorry.
I'm at the article.
I'm sorry. Paul Ryan.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Let me give you an example real quick.
So, okay.
I'm just pulling it up because I told you. So he says that this writer said that Ron Paul uses, for example, inner city, the word inner city, right? So he says that Ron Paul stated that, which he later said that he regretted, that it is perfectly the perfect example of the way public expressions of racism has evolved. Sigil says, you can't publicly say black people don't like to work, but you can say that the inner city culture in which the generations of people don't value work, the goal here is to demonize minorities, far from it, but to demonize a government that helps the middle class, and if people of America have historically associated the inner cities that have been used in that process since the.
Okay, now I can barely hear you because you were breaking up, but if you're talking about Ron Paul and this particular article...
No. Paul Ryan.
Paul Ryan. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know of anything he said that was, microaggression, but he may have. So, like I said, I couldn't hear you because you were breaking up. So I guess it's anything that some white person says that either is a compliment or is perceived as not being a compliment, that somehow is prejudicial, is racist?
No, sir. The definition of code switch, gotta go back to my page. Definition of code switching is,
What particular article? What particular article is it? She has a series of articles on that page.
on the Roots?
Yeah.
Let's see. It's articles for politics 2014-03. It says 8 sneaky racial code words and why politicians.
Okay. I haven't seen that yet. Let me see. Nothing here about racial code.
Sir, Joe?
Yeah.
I got only 90 seconds left in my show. I'm sorry.
You can still go into overtime if you want to.
What's that?
You can go into overtime. The show will not end automatically at the time. The show will continue for another hour. People will not be able to hear it on the air, but they'll be able to hear it in podcast.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So if you don't hang up, the show will continue for another hour. So
okay, cool.
I'm looking at the articles by Jenée Desmond-Harris.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, at root.com. And I don't see anything here about code. I have an article here which says, what exactly can a white man safely say about a black woman's hair? Why is it such a spectacle when white guys dance well? Calling a black girl's hair cotton candy, not cool. And yada, yada, yada. Nothing here about code. Okay. All right. So there's nothing here about code. In any case, what are examples of some of the code that would determine whether or not somebody's, performing microaggression or not?
Okay. So I don't know. Can you hear me?
Barely, yeah.
Okay. It says inner city. It's Ryan which he later said in regret is a perfect example of the way public expression of racism has evolved. If you go to the top of the page and go to search.
Okay.
And then type in eight sneaky racial codes.
A sneaky racial what? Oh, a sneaky racial code?
Okay. The number 8 sneaky racial code.
8 racial code. Racial. Oh, 8 sneaky racial codes. Okay, I got it.
Okay.
All right, I'm there. All righty. Okay, there's Paul Ryan, real culture problem. Okay. Still in inner city. So that's a racial code, okay. All right. Inner city has always meant black neighborhood. So there's something wrong with that?
It is what the guy is saying is when you refer to inner city, naturally that's what you think about is.
All right.
Black
okay. Well, let me give you my opinion about it. It depends upon the intention. I'm seeing here about cut taxes, and that's supposed to be an example of dog whistle politics. To me, that's crap. Cutting taxes helps everybody.
It does.
But so why is that an example of microaggression?
Well, because when you talk about cutting taxes, you're talking about cutting what white people are,
taxes won't be wasted on minorities. Look, there are real instances of people who have prejudices and try to hide them through vague, nebulous words. And then there are real instances, like Freud said, sometimes a cigar is nothing more than a cigar. Okay? So not everything is meant towards demonizing black people. Illegal alien. Now that's supposed to be a racial. Okay. Look, what people have to do is discern between what is truly meant to be a jab against any particular group versus what the statement actually means. Like when people say Tea Party, they say, well, Tea Party is a racially motivated group and wants to destroy the rights of black people. Not true. Now, will there be people within the Tea Party who are prejudiced? There's probably people within the Tea Party who are members of the Ku Klux Klan. That doesn't mean that if you're a member of the Tea Party that you want to send black people back to Africa. So this thing is like, what else is annoying? When women say, well, I'm offended if you give me a compliment. Are you out of your freaking mind? So if you tell some woman, you really look nice in that dress, she's going to feel offended? Well, that's what they do. So to me, some of the stuff is just downright stupid. There are people who just want to become victims for the sake of being victims. So that's what I got to say about that.
Okay. I'll thank you for your opinion.
And you believe that everybody who mentions any kind of, under any situation, who mentions these kind of words, they have to be prejudiced?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
All right.
Why I was using this article was to project some of those things that could possibly be out there. My angle was in a spiritual angle, saying that Satan is the original host, that we need to look for Congress.
I can't hear you at all. We have a bad connection. In any case, there are people who are going to use code words in order to hide their real intentions, and there are people who are not. Again, people have to be more discerning about who those particular people are. It's, what was it? Oh, well, yeah. What was it? Somebody was saying, not forget. Anyway, oh yeah, politically, if a person says politically correct, now that's supposed to be racist. All right. In any case, I'll let you get back to the show and take it easy. All right?
All right, thank you for calling in.
Sure. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Do you suffer from chronic CFED or can't focus energy drain? Try over-the-counter Vibrant. One tablet contains the same caffeine as a cup of coffee, but without the calories or coffee breath. Vibrant. Caffeine, not coffee. Taking Vibrant may result in a lack of drowsiness, improved productivity, and better cash flow from decreased coffee spending. Unexpected job promotions have been associated with Vibrant. Vibrant may decrease the urge to zone out, doze off, or exhibit signs of slacking. All jokes aside, always read the label, take only as directed, and limit caffeine as it may cause real side effects. Not for children under age 12.